All right, so this is the story we were born to cover. I almost feel like it's all downhill from here. After this story, like where will we go from here? There will never be a story as matched to our talents again as this story. Illegal New York synagogue tunnel leads to 9 arrests. Okay, so this is from the BBC. 9 members of a New York Hasidic Jewish community have been arrested and charged over a secret tunnel that connected to a historic synagogue. They fought police after city officials and leaders of the Chabad-Lubavitch headquarters came to close the tunnel. You can tell they kicked me out of Hebrew school when I was 9. I don't have that thing. The men are charged with criminal mischief, reckless endangerment, and obstructing governmental administration. A spokesperson for the Chabad called them a group of extremist students. A spokesman for the Chabad... The tunnels were built under a prominent street in Brooklyn where the Chabad-Lubavitch headquarters are located. The building is one of the most significant Jewish sites in the city. City inspectors were called to the Chabad on Monday to conduct an emergency structural inspection. Okay, so this actually makes me homesick, and I don't even like New York all that much anymore.
Wait, before you play it, is this... I mean, here's what I find very frightening about this story. This is Hasidic Jews doing manual labor. Something's coming.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
You got to watch this.
I'm so glad you found this
because I almost messaged this to you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you had seen it. All right, so this cop, this is the kind of thing when I'm out of New York I miss. I miss this guy. Okay. I miss this guy. We don't do that in America is the most iconic line of the year so far. So let's check this guy out.
Why you need to expensive something? Not like this. Not safe. We don't do that in America.
I love that cop so much.
We don't do that in America.
I know in this space, cop love is not popular, but this cop, I love. That guy I love.
And what's this room? The haunted cop room? In this
where you from? Russia?
Listen,
You're from
Jimmy's family.
Yeah, we don't do that in America.
He knew where they're from.
That was great. That was a true New York moment. All right, so there were looming concerns that the illegal tunnel could have caused damage to the famous property. A brawl broke out after police found a group of young men blocking efforts to inspect and fill the tunnel with cement. Some of the men then broke through the wall of the prayer space. Those acts led to the arrests. Rabbi Yehuda Krinsky, the chairman of the Chabad, thanked police for their efforts and said the community was, quote, pained by the vandalism of a group of young agitators. These odious actions will be investigated and the sanctity of the synagogue will be restored. He said.
Wait, so digging a tunnel is a form of vandalism?
I mean, it is if you don't have permits.
Especially in New York City. I mean, how do you even build a tunnel between buildings in New York City?
This is where the story is very confusing because, what did they do? Like they took spoons out of the dining hall and put the asphalt in their pockets and emptied it every time they went to daven? Like, how did they even?
They dumped it in the women's bathroom. Did you see? The dirt's like in the women's room.
Yeah, like how did they do this? And like the stories are very confused.
You see the baby strollers?
I've seen some stories where they say they were tunneling to a mikveh, which is a ritual bath. I've seen some that say it's a women's mikveh. I've seen some that say it's a men's mikveh, which to my knowledge, that's not a thing.
Yeah, I never.
To my knowledge, mikvahs are only for women because what they are is a ritual purification bath after menstruation. That's a real mikvah. That's what mikvahs are for. So a men's mikvah, I'm assuming a goy wrote the article where I saw that. He just didn't know.
He said a men's mikvah?
He said a men's mikvah, and I was like, how can there
Men can have menstration too.
Wait, hold on.
That's right. They're adjusting to the time. It's a non-binary mikvah.
Yeah.
It might be non-binary.
What are you thinking?
The Chabad are very progressive.
A gender non-conforming mikvah.
That's what Hasidics are known for. Yeah. They're forward, progressive politics.
Yeah. Wait, is this like Porky's with the hole in the shower? Is that what's happening here? They were pulling off a Porky's? That's not kosher.
Listen, I'll be honest with you. I will explain for our even not only our non-Jewish friends, most Jews don't know what the hell this is, and the only reason I know is because I got I don't know about the tunnels, but the Hasidics, I got a request to do a tour of the Hasidics of Brooklyn, which are two different sects.
Yeah.
And normally I would turn down a tour that's that specific because it's a lot of work to prepare it. How often are you going to get asked to do it?
Yeah, and the tips are definite garbage.
The tips are definite garbage if they want to go see the Hasids. But I said, you know what? It's so interesting that I'll do it. So I did it. And as you will see, I have some photographic evidence of that. So I went and I researched all this. So basically what the Hasidics are is a very Messiah-focused sect of Judaism. They're very much about bringing back the Messiah. And there's a kind of sharks and a jets thing going on between these two sects that further split. So you have the Satmars who are in Williamsburg, and they're more like the Amish. They don't want anything to do with outside people.
Right.
The Chabads are the ones you see driving around if you're in a place like New York.
Oh,
they drive around in the mitzvah tank, and if you have even a slight bend in your nose, they will run up to you. Are you Jewish?
Yeah.
Are you Jewish? If
Many
you look,
times.
even unless you are like a shiksa goddess, they're going to run up to you, and maybe even then
they're going to run up to you after work
for a tryst behind the bus.
No,
station.
they will do that.
But oh yes, they do. So they will come up to you to get you to pray, and this is why. So both sects believe this is what they have in common, that the Messiah has not come because the Jews have become too irreligious. So they have to pray harder to get the Messiah to come. Now, the Lubavitchers' approach is even Jews who don't practice like us, if you get them to pray, it's like you're putting some Hanukkah gelt in the Messiah bank.
Like a power station.
You're powering up the arrival of the Messiah. The Satmars are more, no, we're just going to do this shit ourselves. And we're just going to be so devoted that the Messiah will come. So same belief, two different versions. The Chabads are more open and worldly and less closed off. So it's a little surprising that they're the ones this went on with. But that room that they're showing, okay, so that's like from the Middle Ages. I've been there. It's a bunch of these rabbinical students debating Talmud and philosophy. So you go in there, the whole room is just echoing with voices debating the nature of God and things like, really like something from the 15th century. I say
we need a tunnel.
It is not the nature of God to dig a tunnel between buildings. So, who digs a tunnel? This is something the goyim do. We don't dig. We're not diggers. We don't dig. Okay, so but with this tunnel, listen, I can explain the Hasidics to you, but I can't explain these fucking tunnels. I don't know. I don't get it.
That's the best time
I can explain to you what a mikveh is.
That's the best time that's when they're the cleanest, right after the bath. That's when these young dudes, like, it's right when it's
Shlomo. I heard Sadie was just at the mikveh. You must have had the very
fresh
nice
out of the mikveh
last night. Very fresh.
It's like lobster. You got to get it fresh. We go to the fish market the first day of the...
You think this was rough? You ain't seen nothing yet.
This is sexual. There's something sexual, 100%, I think. Because you always hear about this. Well, Amish, they made that movie, Women Talking. I didn't see it because it stinks, but it's about a real thing with Mennonites. Anybody that gets alone in a tight Nexium to people with weird beards, there's going to be some weird sex tunnel. It's just it's part of it.
Well, that's why ZZ Top had to resign in disgrace. It is unclear who built the tunnel, how they did it, and what their motivations were. It appears the tunnel connects to at least one other building on the street in Brooklyn. See, this is what I'm saying. This one doesn't mention the mikveh, but the earlier ones did. So I don't know what's going on here.
Because guess what?
They don't want to give away.
It looks like a sex thing. Think of how much the Catholic Church was able to keep stuff out. Do you know what I mean? Like, and this is a big, this is a significant voting block.
There's another possible part to this story. Maybe I'll do a Friday. I didn't have time to really vet it today, but about things like that. But maybe we'll get into it Friday. All right. So one local told the New York Times that the men sought to build the tunnel to hasten the expansion of the synagogue, which I'm sorry. I'm calling bullshit. That makes no sense. Why would you dig a fucking tunnel to the building next door to expand the synagogue?
Because
don't you have a key? You don't have a key to the building next door?
Those young men aren't married. They're called something, right? Begins with a B. They're unmarried.
Well,
Hasidim? So what does that tell you?
Well, what happens with Hasidic Jews usually is these guys are being trained to be rabbis, and only 2% are actually chosen at the end of that process.
Very FLDS at the
and that's how, and they're totally uneducated in everything else other than being a rabbi. That's all they know. That's how they wind up in the diamond business. They wind up in real estate because they can only do things that you don't need a lot of education to do. Just learn about diamonds. You don't need to know grammar, right? You don't need because some of them have rebelled and rejected it and come out and said, "Yeah, when I went out into the real world, I knew nothing."
You ever go on Haredi Watch? It's called Haredi Watch. It's an one of these guys who I got to check out website. I bet he knows.
All right, so we have a very exclusive video here of the events that occurred. Some are calling it the Battle of Crown Heights, where the police and the protesters and the Hasidics and the tunnelers all faced off in one big matzo ball soup of chaos.
Remember Fort Surrender in Borough Park?
Yeah, I do. All right, so let's take a look.
You're not supposed to dance, Ralph, because you're not Jewish! Yo!
You will die in the fire of Ishtar.
That's a documentary that's going to be coming from A&E about these.
It looks like
events.
a blood libel to me.
So this is me hanging with the Lubavitchers. So this is what happened. So this guy here, it's not Shmuley. I know that he bears a resemblance. It's not.
He looks like a young Rabbi Shmuley.
He does. He does. He was, he basically saw me walking around taking notes. And so he started showing me around, and that's how I got inside that room where they debate the Talmud. And so if you know these Chabads, because again, they think if they get you to pray, if they get you to do anything religious, you're helping to bring the Messiah.
Yeah.
So this guy basically had given me like 3 hours of his time and toured me through all these places in the compound. So then he wanted me to wear the tefillin. What you see there, the leather, the very Judas Priest looking shit.
On your head and heart?
Yeah.
A little bit literal way to take that.
It's like a box with what's
prayers?
in Keaton, do you know what is that? The Torah is in that or something?
Yeah.
I have absolutely
The
no
law.
idea.
Yeah, he
It's
doesn't
the
know.
law.
He's even less Jewish than me.
It's the law.
Yeah, it is?
Yeah, you're supposed to keep the law. They're doing it, taking it real
Right.
literal.
They
about
put
keeping
it
the
they
law.
put it on their head like the
And then
Cenobites
on
from
your
Hellraiser.
arm.
Yeah.
There's a scripture about it, and I think they meant it metaphorically, but maybe you have to actually do that.
Yeah, no, he kept asking me, can you put on the tefillin? Can you put on the tefillin? I was like, listen, man, they kicked me out of Hebrew school when I was 9. You put that on me, they're going to burst into flames. And he was like, we're all sinners. I was like, what are you, Catholic now? So finally I said, he gave me so much of his time. I was like, look, I don't believe in it. If it's going to make you happy, fine.
Yeah.
So,
You just need your Jew-fi signal to have a strengthened upload.
that's it. So now when the Messiah comes, I'll have had something to do with it. I cannot even begin to imagine what the hell they were doing. I know a lot of people are speculating on it being a sex thing. That's what I have to look more into, because that's not something that I was going to slap together at the last minute before the show.
Too hot.
I did find some articles dealing with that subject. So I'll look into it. Like, I'm not afraid of that subject. It's just not something. If you're going to start talking that, you better be sure.
Okay,
you know what you're talking about.
If those men are the failed rabbis of the group, that means they're not going to get women. Okay, so they're calling.
No, they will. They will. Like if you go, let me explain for anyone who's not from New York or hasn't been in New York. Literally, if you go to the Hasidic parts of Brooklyn, it's like going to Amish country in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
like every single house is Hasidic owned. Every business is. There are no outsiders within these sections. They've even taken over the public schools. They've bought them from the city and turned them into yeshivas. This is why these kids are so ignorant. And the city government is afraid to challenge them. So they just let them completely violate the law about the standard of education you're supposed to give to children. Even if it's a religious school, they have to meet certain standards. They do not enforce that with the Hasidics at all.
It's a huge voting block.
Well, yeah. I think they don't want to get into the freedom of worship issue. Like, they just don't want to take that. They're gonna fight it to the Supreme Court.
Can you imagine?
So but if you can't imagine, if nobody's been there really, like, it is like if you dropped an Amish community in the middle of Brooklyn. And what's really funny with the Williamsburg is Hipsterville is across the street.
Yeah, all
the hipsters. The only thing they have in common are the hats.
Dominicans are there too, though. But
that's another section.
Oh well, yeah, I guess you're right.
That's the South Side.
Yeah.
Well, they own a lot of the buildings in Williamsburg. They make a lot of money off the hipsters. They rent to the hipsters.
Yep.
Oh, so you remember the Duggar family, 19 and counting?
Yeah.
So my friend Brooke was in that like movement, Quiverful, and I'm guessing some kind of weird thing like that because, by the way, Quiverful, that weird like we live like Israel too, but they're Christian. It gets real strange, especially with like young wives and sex shit. I mean, if I had to put money on a number on this table.
This is all I'm gonna say. I am, where me and Keaton, we've talked about this a lot since certain stories broke recently that have to do with our people. It's very rare for Jews that you're in a position where you're like, we're the only ones who can talk about this. Everyone else is going to be scared of this story. So, hey, man, the sex thing, I'll get into it if I find it has merit. The only thing that I will say is that is legit an old trope. There's an old trope.
You have to fuck through a hole in the ground as well as a sheep?
The idea... the idea that Jews are part of a worldwide network of kaftans, as they call it, pimps, kaftans this was written about in legitimate magazines back in the day, very prominent, news magazines,
you remember in Jersey
100 years ago.
With Jersey in the 90s, what happened?
Well, back then, this was a stereotype. But I know today the stereotype of Jews is, white collar accountants, professionals.
I'm proud of them for digging their own tunnel.
But back then, the stereotype was gangsters, pimps, thieves.
Really?
Yeah. No, that was the stereotype. So there were, if you read the Turner Diaries that inspired Timothy McVeigh with the Oklahoma City bombing, well, you know what? Back when liberals used to believe in freedom of speech, they went out of their way after the Oklahoma City bombing. If you went to like independent bookstores in New York, Turner Diaries, they made a point of having it as a freedom of speech statement. As inconceivable as that is with the libs you have today.
Now I think it
was a very different sensibility. But it has that trope in it. That is a long time trope. This idea that Jews are sex traffickers.
Everybody sex traffics.
Well, yeah.
It's very popular.
Be that as it may. I'm just saying. I'm not going to go to Muslims. That with this tunnel without examining the evidence.
Come see us do a live stand-up show. We'll be in Venice, California, Palmdale, California, Omaha, Des Moines, Milwaukee, Lansing, Bend, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Boston, Massachusetts, and we're going to Europe. Do you live in Europe? We're going to be there. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.